Shouldn't financial advice focus on you, your goals, challenges, dreams for the future? At Modern Woodman, our goal is to help you plan for your financial security. Our representatives are people you can trust to help bring your dreams to life. Modern Woodman can help you plan for all stages of life, from protection to saving to retirement.
Contact your local representative at Arthur today at 989-834-3300.
Modern Woodman of America, touching lives, securing futures.
This podcast contains some strong language and some stories involving violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Warfighters United, where veterans' voices are heard and transitional programs and resources provided. Today's podcast is brought to you by Modern Woodman Fraternal Financial, an organization that will help us navigate life's most important decisions, from life insurance to college to financial planning. Modern Woodman has your family covered. To find out more, become part of the Modern Woodman family, go to modernwoodman.org. Today we're going to talk about the Civil War, and my guest today is Shane Houghton. He's a part of the Ionia VFW. Him and I had the honor and privilege to help save one of the last Civil War battle flags on public display. Welcome to Warfighters United, Shane.
Well, thank you, Eric. I appreciate being here, and this is a great topic, and we had a lot of fun, and I'm so proud that we were able to do that.
Yeah, and you know, on that topic of what we were able to do, let's go back a little bit and talk about some of the history of the 21st Regiment.
Well, the 21st Regiment was formed really out of Ionia. They base camped out of Capsingle, just east of town, but it can volunteers of 18 surrounding counties from West Michigan, and that was in September of 1862. Is when they formally was sworn in as a regiment, and the Ionia Courthouse lawn. So that was almost 160 years ago. In fact, it is 160 years ago.
Yeah, and so when the country called up the state of Michigan to ask for volunteers for the Union, they pretty much 18 counties over, about 1,000 guys came to Ionia County and volunteered?
Right, it's about 1,000 members. I think it was 1,008 altogether when it was first mustered in with the officers with that, from the 18 counties. So, and by the way, that was the most soldiers in that regiment for the entire war.
Really?
Yes.
And so what they did is a lot of them are on horseback. They either walked. I mean, you're talking 100 up to 100, 150 miles they walked to go volunteer to serve for the Union.
Well, yeah, a lot of them walked or horseback or whatever, and maybe some trains. I know when they first took off out of Ionia, they loaded up on a train and went to Detroit, and from there the train to southern Ohio, and from there is when they started walking.
Yeah, and so before they hit the trains to go down to southern Ohio, the ladies of Ionia did something pretty spectacular. What was that?
Yeah, well, the ladies of Ionia had commissioned this very elegant silk battle flag for the 21st Infantry, and just before they left, on I think it was September 6, 1862, they presented this silk flag to the regiment. And it cost a princely sum back then of $225. And that was a lot of money back then.
Yeah, $225 in 1862 probably equivalates up to about
several thousand anyhow.
At least several thousand.
Yeah.
And so the ladies of Ionia had this flag made, and then they awarded it to the 21st Regiment in Ionia. And so that was part of their battle flags that they carried throughout the Civil War.
Absolutely. Yeah, they proudly carried that battle flag. It was a very, very nice battle flag.
And so what kind of training do you think these guys went through?
Well, yeah, one of the things, in reading the book Into the Tornado about the 21st Michigan Infantry, is they had really very little training before they left. They had 2 weeks of training before they left to go down to southern Ohio, and only 4 weeks before their first battle at Perryville.
Perryville. So,
yep.
So only 4 weeks from the time that they volunteered to fight to travel down there
yep.
and get right into the Battle of the Civil War.
Right. Remember, the 2 weeks of that was the formal training, then the other 2 weeks is traveling, and I don't know how much training they got in the other 2 weeks. So they really is pretty raw recruits.
Well as that, a lot of them were teenagers as well. It was a lot of father-son duos.
Yeah. There'd be a lot of father-sons, a lot of family, different ages and stuff like that.
And there wasn't communication back then like there is now. So once they left, their families probably didn't hear from them.
Well, and once in a while they could send off letters and, get back to their families and maybe receive a letter, but not like you would nowadays.
Yeah, and so how did this come about, this flag? So when they served in, 12 different battles, and they were part of Sherman's March to the Sea? Yeah,
they served in a number of different battles, including the Battle of Chickamauga, Browns Ferry, Bettnesville, Stone River, Ansonburg, Chaplain Hills, Chattanooga, and Savannah, Georgia.
And so they went all the way down south.
They went all the way. Part of served marched all the way to the sea, and on the way back after the war, they had went up through Washington D.C. and went through New York and Pennsylvania and back through Ohio. So it was over a 3,000-mile loop and walking most of it.
And since we were fighting, it was Americans against Americans. It was the South versus the North.
Yep, families against families.
Families against families. So just imagine, volunteering to serve for the Union. And then, getting down there and realizing that maybe your cousins were fighting on the other side.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure that happened. And perhaps you even, meet some of them or unfortunately see them on the battlefield dead or hurt.
And what do you think that was like? So, back then in the Civil War, they would just line up and, go to battle with, there wasn't really a lot of... how do I say it? Tactics to it.
Yeah, I'm sure there was, but the tactics were a lot different back in those days. They just line up for battle and and charge and charge those cannons or charge those other soldiers. But remember, they didn't have the repeating guns back then either. But still, the fire was devastating.
Well, yeah, they used muskets.
Mainly muskets, and some of them, different
cannons,
types of cannons and stuff like that. But cannons with grape shot and sometimes even a solid ball, going down those lines could take out several people at a time.
Oh yeah, or decapitate their feet, their legs.
I know it. But can you imagine the courage it took to just stand there and take these volleys?
No,
and walking in line towards entrenched people. Even if they didn't have, most of them didn't have repeating guns. To go at it and just stand up and go in line.
Well, just the fact that when you did shoot that first round, probably took a minute or two to not only put the powder in, put the ball in, blasting cap, get everything situated to where you'd be able to shoot again. So I'm pretty sure that was probably one of their biggest things in their training regiment was learning how to do that fast and quick.
Yeah, but can you imagine doing that? To start with, they're pretty raw recruits, so how much training did they really have to do that? In taking care of their guns, their muskets, or whatever you want to call them, keep them clean, stuff like that. And then doing it under fire like that, stand there and just taking those shots and seeing the people around you falling down, and you're trying to, load this thing up again to shoot. It's just, it's just amazing. A lot of courage.
Yeah, that is a crap ton of courage.
I know it.
And and also it must have been hard for them. I know famine and disease back then were huge. They were big parts of the Civil War. But only with that, a lot of them just getting food was probably difficult to feed a regiment.
Yeah, the logistics of that, particularly when they got out of the Union area itself. They would send groups out to scavenge for food to local farms and stuff like that. So I imagine this went up to these local farms and grabbed their cows and pigs and goats or whatever, and any other thing that they had to feed the regiment as they go, because he couldn't always count on the supply train being cut full. So you'd have to do what you had to do.
Yeah, and so out of the 1,000 or so guys, I think there was, about 650, maybe 700 that actually made it back after the Civil War?
Well, people, they rotate some people in and out of there, but I think there was 377 casualties altogether, and that would include many, many more wounded. So, a lot of those were, disease and sickness, like you said. I think the first casualty was out of Orleans, Michigan, which is just northeast of Ionia, or northwest of Ionia, and that was due to illness. So,
man, I couldn't even imagine just being in that kind of situation and going through all that. And so, as we started learning the history, how did it come about that this flag was given back?
Well, at the end of the war, the regiments were ordered to return the battle flags to the state of Michigan for this flag program. But the 21st felt that it was important that this flag deserved a different fate. Since it was presented to them by the ladies of Ionia County, they wanted to present it back to them. So they kind of defied the orders, and it stood. So on July 4th, 1864, it was presented back to the ladies of Ionia County, or the people from Ionia County, and it was put in the courthouse where it's hung ever since.
On Independence Day, I mean, what a notable day,
right,
to come back from battle and award the flag that the ladies of Ionia had created back to the city of Ionia, back to the county of Ionia, back to the civilians of Ionia. I mean, could you imagine those men and teenagers that came back, or probably most of them were adults by then, to come back and hand the flag that they took through 12, 13 different battles that flown, and maybe we should hit on flag holders. So it's not like your normal flag that's small. This is a big garrison flag.
It's a big garrison flag, about 6 by 6.5 feet roughly. Those are big flags, so that people could see from a distance.
Yeah, you imagine. And so I think the way it worked was they would have a platoon of guys. Their whole job was to carry that flag.
Right. So when one went down, the other ones would rush in and grab that. And remember, that made you a target. Can you imagine the courage the people had to pick up that flag once it went down?
Because, oh, my goodness.
Your enemy, the Confederates, are aiming for that flag.
Well, yeah, because they know if they capture that flag, they capture the heart of the unit.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, that in the fog of battle, the soldiers look around. Where's the flag? This is where I need to be. And they were so proud of that flag.
Right, and so they'd have like a platoon of guys. Their whole job was to protect that flag. But then they'd have another platoon of guys that had weapons that were protecting the guys protecting the flag.
Yep.
And, I'm kind of, I just would love to be on a fly on the wall to see how many times that probably happened throughout the Civil War. I mean, there was only 3 times where flags were taken by, whether it be the Confederate or the Unions. But just to, be that guy to carry the flag and volunteering to do so. And from what I have heard and read, that was the most prestigious job in the Civil War.
Yeah, I mean they were awful proud to be able to do that. So that's, like I say, it's brave to do that. I couldn't imagine because you just line yourself up as a target also. Yeah,
and so they awarded this flag July 4th, 1865, back to the city of Ionia. And the city of Ionia hung it in their courthouse.
And, July 4th, that's like you were saying, July 4th, our Independence Day, that went through the war that saved our union, saved our country. And it was back on July 4th, 1865. So, that's important, and maybe I'm jumping ahead up here a little bit, but, we sent it out to be refurbished, and we thought there for a while it might be able to be back on July 4th of 2025. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but we were really hoping for that.
No, 160 years to the day.
Yeah, 160 years to the day.
And so I know over the years, so in the 1960s, the city of Ionia and others, they were restoring other flags from the Civil War regiments from Michigan. And the state started, trying to, redo not only redo, but to curate the flags and preserve them. And so what happened in 1960 with our flag?
In the 1960s, sometimes, I don't know the exact date, but our flag was taken down. It did not go to the state, but it was sent out to some person who was going to work on it, preserve it. So wouldn't continue to deteriorate. The problem was hanging up on the wall over 160 years. It's a big, heavy flag, and it was tearing itself apart. So back in the 60s, it was common. They would take these flags, lay them out, and sew a netting on the back to support them. And they did this by just not putting it attached at a few points. They did thousands and thousands and thousands of stitching all over that to hold that netting. And then we got it back, and they hung it back up on the courthouse.
And that's where it's been hanging until just about 2 years ago. Well, apparently there's a few times before that the state wanted to preserve it and take it before the third time.
Right. There's ongoing discussions about taking the flag and to preserve it. And, their thought behind it is to preserve the flag from further deterioration, because hanging up on the wall in the courthouse, it wasn't properly protected from tearing itself apart over time, UV rays fading it out, and things like that could go wrong with it. I mean, the display case that was in was just a glass display case. It didn't really protect the flag that well. So the state wanted to take the flags and spend a lot of money on it to preserve and then keep them at the state program.
Right, and the state program, it's a great program.
It is a great program.
Preserve the history of Michigan, the history of our veterans, the people who serve, the flags that they carried, from the Civil War to, every conflict that we've ever been in.
Spanish-American War, all the wars. So they have like 160 battle flags in the state program.
Right, and they show one a month.
And they rotate. They only got the facility to actually show one a month. The rest of them are kept in storage. And that's one of the reasons why Eric and I, you and I got together to see what we could do to save the flag so it wouldn't be more or less buried in the state program. And what I mean by buried in the state program, with 160 flags, and if they rotate once a month, ours is going to come up once every, 25 years for a month. So the people of Ionia, or the people who served in that 18 surrounding counties, it would be out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, and what was amazing, we actually did find relatives of some of the people that served over this battle over the last, for that 8 months that we were raising the funds and getting everything aligned to get it preserved. And so tell me about that. So how did you come across that this was going to happen? Hello, I'm Eric Calley from the Warfighters United podcast, and Modern Woodmen Fraternal Financial is hosting the 4th annual Trucking for Troops Veteran Raffle to benefit local veterans. The raffle's grand prize will be a brand new 2026 Chevrolet Silverado Crew Cab 4x4. Raffle tickets are $100 each. The drawing will take place on November 10th at 2 p.m. All proceeds from the raffle tickets will go towards supporting veterans. All tickets can be purchased at Modern Woodmen, Shaheen Chevrolet, or the VFW Post 2406 in Charlotte.
I'm not exactly sure what you mean by this is going to happen.
Or that the state wanted to take it to preserve it.
Oh, okay, yeah. I got a call from one of the city commissioners on a late Sunday afternoon or early evening, reaching out to me as being one of the veterans groups and contacts, and let me know that on the following Tuesday afternoon, there was going to be a discussion about what to do with the Civil War flag that hung in the courthouse for 160 years. So I told him I was definitely going to be there. So I went down there, and when the agenda item came up, Matt Van Aker from the state program was there presenting a case to take the flag and have it preserved and then stored in the state program to save the flags. Which, like you said, it is a great program, but I didn't feel at the time that would be the right thing to do with the flag. And I think a number of the county commissioners were with me on this. So anyhow, I argued not to make a decision that day, to let me go out and see if I could drum up some support for saving that flag, to raise the necessary money. The problem is the county didn't feel that whatever the cost of this was going to be should not come out of the county funds. It should come out of the people, the public. And so anyhow, they allowed me some time to go out and see if I could drum up support. So I went out and hit up a number of veterans organizations in my areas, VFWs, American Legion clubs, the County Historical Society, the Legislative Coffee, a number of places, and I found a lot of support. And that's when I found you, Eric, and that was a blessing with all your media contacts. And I mean, you just jumped right on.
Well, I mean, I think it's very important to keep our history, especially Ione County has been the curator and the beholder of this flag for the last 160 years. And just the fact that our history would be going somewhere, still a great place, but it wouldn't be there for our residents of Ione County or the other 18 counties of the people who served, not to be able to learn about it, see about it, hear about it. Like we have elementary schools that come to the courthouse, and, one of the first stops they probably make is taking a look at the Civil War battle flag and explaining what that is. Yeah. And, it defines patriotism. It's right. What our country went through to provide the freedoms that we have today. So it was very important to me, as well as you, to make sure that stayed right in Ionia.
Right. It's an historic history, and I felt and I argued that, if we sent the flag to the state program, it would be a betrayal to our forefathers who accepted stewardship of the flag nearly 160 years ago. I argued about, they had already 160 flags. And by the way, they had a number of other 21st Michigan infantry flags there also. Not like ours, but they had a number of them already there. So didn't want them to have that one. So, it was important that if we could preserve the flag, as long as it's properly taken care of and properly preserved, that, we could have it for whenever anyone wanted to come and see it, they could come and see it and honor it.
Well, and thinking about that too was this flag and its history, since it wasn't made by the state, maybe it should stay in Ione County.
Yeah, and maybe that's one of the reasons they actually allowed that to happen. But, they could have very easily just gave it to the state. And we're so glad they didn't. And I'm so glad that our forefathers accepted that stewardship. And we've done that for so long. We need to continue.
And what the uncanny part about this is when we started looking for textile companies to not only send the flag to preserve it. I mean, explain what that was like when you found out that somehow out of a just circumstance, you got the same textile company the state of Michigan uses.
Yeah, I just went online and started searching. I kind of had an action plan on what we needed to do to get the thing preserved and what we're going to do to raise funds. And anyhow, so I went online and started searching preservation companies, stuff like this, and I came across a place called Textile Preservation Association, and they're in West Virginia, Ransom, West Virginia. And I contacted them, and actually I sent them some pictures of it, and they sent me back a quote. And I later found out it was the same company that the state of Michigan uses to not only train their own people, but to send a number of flags that they don't have time to work on themselves. So it's a very prestigious place. And the director of the state program fund who we're using, he was very happy with that.
Yeah, he should be very happy with that. It's the same place the state is using, and so there's a lot of reasoning behind it. We stuck with that place,
right?
Because we wanted to make sure that after this flag was preserved, nobody would ever try to take it ever again.
Right, but the important thing was preserved properly. We want this thing preserved for another 160 years, for hopefully somebody else, if it needs some more work, will take up the torch and preserve it for another 160 years after that. So, sending it out and having it properly preserved, and then put, instead of just in a glass case hung on a wall, because over time it would tear itself apart again, this company is going to be putting it in a special pressurized case. And I don't mean where it's going to be pressed against a soft surface in the back, so that when it's hanging back up in the courthouse, it won't start tearing itself apart over time. And of course, the case will also be UV protected also, so it won't fade. So the big concerns that the county and the state had was that, the damage being the way the flag was displayed was going to continue to tear itself apart. The UV fading it, and the fact that if they did find a case that they could put it on that to have it preserved and get it back, there wouldn't be room in the courthouse to display the thing in a horizontal position. So one of the action plans would be to find a place that would have a case like that, and so we could put it back up. So that solved all their problems, all their concerns.
And so we raised enough money and we took the flag off the wall. That was a huge, momentous day because we knew it was going down to the textile company. But once it got down to the textile company, we found out some different things about the flag that we never knew.
Well, yeah, we didn't know it. I mean, because I guess, that's not our specialty and stuff like that. Once they got it down there and then took the back off, they could see that there was parts of the flag were missing, parts that had been in the 60s preservation had been actually moved around a little bit. Some of the wording was moved around a little bit on some of the banners inside the flag. Also, the initial quote we had for this flag was a little over $37,000. That did not include the battle flag part that demonstrated all the battles they went with it, and so it was another $8,000. So, a total of $46,000 is what we needed to raise this. And the reason for that is all the netting, cutting all the netting off it. They had to go in there and individually snip every one of those threads from the sewing that they was done in the 60s. And when they got that apart, they just found that it was kind of hodgepodge put back together from the last time.
Yeah, so in the 1960s, when they did it, they put some parts of that flag that weren't originally there to make it try to look complete.
Yep. And, with a dark blue backing on it and stuff like that. So once you took that off, you could see really what was missing. And part of that might be from the ravages of war, from it just hanging up over time and tearing itself apart after 160 years. So between the two, there's part of it's missing.
Well, and of course, we had the quotes of what it was going to cost. Mm-hmm. But then as it turned out, it was a little bit more than that.
Well, yeah, particularly that extra $8,000 for the battle banner that kind of went with that. So all in all, we raised just a little over $60,000 in 8 months, which was, I think, just amazing. But we did a number of things, but that's enough money for us to not only get the flag preserved and put it in a special pressurized case that it's going to come back in, but it allowed us to buy 3 replica flags, had 3 replicas made. One we hung up in the courthouse when the battle flag was taken down, packed up to be shipped out. So there could be something there while it was gone. One went up in the high school above the high school's veteran honor board, where the high school has honor board with all kinds of information about Ionia County veterans. So anyhow, it's hanging up there so people can honor it and the children can honor it there. Once in the Ionia VFW that we've been using for parades. And that allows us to better educate the public that this flag is here and what it means and stuff like that. So have those 3. What
I love about it is we put the replica flag in the wall of, I think they call it the Ionia County Wall of Honor.
Wall of Honor.
High school county.
High school, yeah.
Yep. And now everybody that goes to that school and they walk over and see the, prior military that came out of Ionia County High School.
Right.
They can look up and on the very top is that Civil War battle flag. But, like we were saying, once the TPA Textile Company got it, they realized that some of the things weren't right with that flag. And so the replica flags we made aren't exactly what it was supposed to look like.
No, some of the wording, the lettering got kind of moved around a little bit, so we're probably going to have at least 1 or 2 new replicas made that's going to be more exactly represent the flag. I mean, it's not a lot different, but enough that, we want to have it right. So the plan right now is once it comes back and gets hung up on the wall, have a good replica hanging next to it that will show what it originally looked like, accurately originally looked like.
It's such a great thing that we're able to preserve the history and keep it in Ionia, because it had been hanging there for 160 years, and here we are in the 161st year, and we're about to get it back.
We're about to get it back. We're anxious to go get that. Last thing I heard was mid-November, the 2nd or 3rd week in November, we should be getting that flag back. Eric, you and I are planning out, driving out and getting that ourselves to bring it back.
And the flag's not going to look the same as what it left like. And so this is, they preserve it the way a museum would want it preserved. Right. Kind of explain what that details.
Well, yeah, we had the option of them putting a dark blue backing on it that matched the dark blue of the basic flag itself. So by doing that, it would have kind of covered up or hidden the fact of the parts of the flag that were missing. But normally museum settings and stuff like that, you'd be proud of how the flag actually looks itself. So it'd be on a light blue backing, and so that those areas that are missing and or through whatever reasons through the war or whatever that caused that, shows up a lot more. And the way it was, it had a dark blue backing on it before, so you couldn't really see what was missing before. And we can now.
Yeah, you definitely can. I
sent the pictures to us, and I was shocked.
Yeah, but it's 100% the real flag. There isn't a piece on that flag that wasn't there in 1862. All the pieces that they had put in 1960 are now taken out.
And the things they just rearranged not quite in the right spot is back to where it belongs.
And I don't know how many hours that took the ladies at the textile company to do, but think about that, the thousands and thousands of stitches one by one they had to take out. Mm-hmm. And then it's a double-sided flag, so
right. Yeah, and so you can that's why it's so expensive. That's why the $45,000. One stitch at a time. They're pulling it, and the flag is fragile, so they got to be so careful. And then what's left in it, be able to lay it out right, and then put it in something on something that's going to hold the thing together, so we can present it again for another 160 years. It's a lot of work, and they're doing a great job.
And I think along with it, when we do hang up that flag, they're actually going to put some of the history that flag has went through since it made it back from the Civil War to tell the story of that flag over the last 160 years. And that will kind of help people understand, what that flag has went through over the years. Right.
Right now from what they did when they had this preserved in the 60s, there's already a plaque there that kind of explains the history of the flag and being presented in September of 1862, how it came back, how it went out and got preserved in the 60s. And now we're going to add on to that to what's happened in the 2025s, 24s. Actually, we started this 2023, I believe. It went out in 2024. It's coming back in 2025. So we're going to have something that explains all those steps and what we've done to it since then.
And there's actually a book that's there at the courthouse as well. And that's a log book.
Some type of log book. It's in a case beside where the flag is. I haven't been allowed to get it down and look at that, but I think that's something we need to look at to make sure that book is properly preserved. There are a number of other books that you can go out and buy about the 21st Infantry and what they've been through war. And, one of the great ones is the Tornado of War. And I went out and bought a number of these copies and gave them out to a number of people. It's really quite interesting of the day-to-day operations of it and letters from some of the soldiers that wrote home and some of the casualties and how the wars went and what they did and why they did them and stuff like that. And remember, they're an infantry organization, but they were used for whatever was necessary during the war. So sometimes they'd be working as an engineering regiment, maybe building bridges or earthworks or whatever needed to be made or built or, whatever was needed at the time is what they would be using.
Right. Back then you didn't get a choice. There weren't job-specific areas.
Right.
You were doing whatever you were told.
That's right. Back then I'm sure they had enough talented people in all aspects that, could do that. So could do most of this stuff.
Yeah, and so name some of the organizations. I know the VFW was a great help in us raising all that money. The American Legions, the Moose Lodges, all of our private donors. I mean, without all these people, we couldn't have made this happen.
No, we couldn't have made this happen. So Modern Woodman, all the media, your media contacts, a lot of individuals. There's a number of individuals give $1,000 or $2,000 at a time. In fact, one of the county commissioners, on the day that they found they did approve it, handed us a check for the first $2,000 right there.
Oh yeah, the Heshy's Meat Market.
Right. Your post VFW donated quite a bit of money. My post donated quite a bit of money, and other private individuals donated quite a bit of money.
Yeah, and you know, the fact that it's coming back here soon, you know, we not only want to, you know, get this podcast out there to thank all the individuals to help us make this happen, but, you know, when we do have the final date that we're coming back, we're gonna let the state of Michigan know, and it's going to be everywhere. You know, the Lansing State Journal, who helped us do the big story on it at first, Detroit Free Press, Grand Rapids Free Press, all the news organizations, and everybody helped us get the word out to enable us to make that money the quicker, so we could send that flag down and get it started.
Right.
Was a huge feat. But you know, this kind of goes along with the VFW's mission.
Mission to promote patriotism and to educate the public about the importance of our history, of our memory and history of our dead, as part of their core mission statement.
Right, and during the Civil War and in almost every conflict that the United States has had, Michigan has been a huge component when it comes to military service.
Absolutely, they have.
Yeah.
There was a number of regiments that went out of Michigan for the Civil War also. So.
Some even actually fought in Pennsylvania at Gettysburg.
Yeah. Some of the other ones, you know. So, but we fought, our 21st fought in a number of very important ones. I said, you got to be proud about being part of Sherman's March to the Sea to help end the war.
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't for the March to the Sea, maybe the war wouldn't have ended so quickly.
Right. And then, you know, in this book, That Tornado War, there's a picture of, you know, it shows the route that they went all the way down to Savannah and all that. And then the route that they took back up to go home to Michigan. Like I say, a little over 3,000 miles altogether, mostly walking. And it shows that they went to Washington, D.C. So I didn't read it in the book, but I haven't really finished the whole book yet. But, you know, there was a big parade at the end of the war walking through Washington, D.C., and it certainly looks like they were part of that grand parade after the war.
I couldn't even imagine being a part of that, knowing that the war is over and they didn't have to fight their sometimes cousins or family members from the South, or
and the famine, disease, and you know, at times the regiment was well supplied, and sometimes it wasn't. So sometimes they went hungry.
Right,
you know?
and nobody even knows how many people were just wounded.
Oh yeah.
You know, they don't really tell those facts. They didn't keep track of those like we do nowadays.
Right. And getting wounded back then, I mean, the medicine isn't like it is now. So, you know,
getting antibiotics was probably few and far in between.
Yeah, and getting your limbs just cut off, or arms, or something. Those musket balls, you know, they just shatter the bones.
Well, and the hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, and
you know, with swords,
with swords or bayonets, because you know they certainly had bayonets. So
yeah, I couldn't imagine. So, well, Shane, you know, this flag's coming back, hopefully in mid-November, and you know, we're definitely going to do our due diligence and making sure everybody knows that it's coming back. And this is part one of kind of telling the history about the 21st Regiment out of the Civil War, the 18 counties that all formed up in Ionia, and preserving the history of our veterans that came before us.
Absolutely. It's a big media event to let everybody know. And part of our mission goal was to educate the public about that flag being there and its history. And we need to do better with that going forward so everybody knows.
Well, that's exactly why we've put it in every parade that Ionia has. Now you'll be able to see the veterans carrying the replica 21st Regiment flag.
Right.
And, you know, as you've been doing the parades over the last year, how many people asked about that flag?
A number of people stop and ask about it, and you know, some of them heard about it and were certainly happy to see that. And because I explained to them that you can go in the courthouse and see one there anytime you want to, too. And anybody that wants that flag for a function and stuff, you know, it's available to use. So, you know, even as a reenactment group that needs a 21st Michigan flag, you know, we can loan it out to them, or, you know, like that. So part of educating the public and allow people to honor it.
And so where would they go? They just give Ionia VFW a call, or give you a call?
Give me a call, the Ionia VFW a call, but you can call Shane at 616-841-8574, and we can see what we can do.
Yeah, because, you know, preserving our history, making sure that our younger generations learn about it, keeping our patriotism and Americanism alive today is more important now than it ever was before. And so, Shane, if you would have never brought this to our attention, this would have probably never happened.
This flag would be at the state program, and like we've said, it's a great program, but our flag would have been basically buried and forgotten by the people of the 17 surrounding counties, because how many people would know it's there, and how many people would know it's when it's going to come up for view? Yeah.
So with that, any saved rounds, Shane?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to come down here. I'm anxious to get that flag back, get it put up, have it in all the papers again, and we just need to continue to let the public know and teach our future generations about the history of the flag and why it's important to honor it.
Yeah, and if you want to learn more about Warfighters United, you can go to warfightersunited.com. On Facebook, you can go to Warfighters United Podcast. And if you want to email me or have any questions about anything, you can email me at warfightersunitedpodcast@gmail.com. Until next week, we'll talk to you then.
To speak with Eric Calley and Warfighters United, you can email him at eric@warfightersunited.com or call 517-699-0111.